Welcome to the Late Lunch Leftovers, where we take a look back at some of the best bits from the show last week. We heard how you can keep a check on your own health with a brand new service launching very soon on the island. We were back at the shack with Georgie Revel, who let Beth loose with a massive chopper. We had wonderful work experience students Aaron and Annie with us, and they got in conversation with Mike Cooley about mobile phones. To celebrate 50 years since man went to the moon, we heard from astronaut Nicole Stott about what it's like to actually go into space. And we finished the week with live music from Rachel Hare and Ron Jappy, who are taking part in the 2019 Uncronicked Festival gathering. But first, our Tanya Anderson had a lovely greens time with the BBC's Frances Tophill when Gardener's World came to film her at the Laxey allotment.
Oh, it's been an amazing day here at the allotment. Frances, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Of course. Well, I'm a gardener who has found myself becoming a bit of a TV gardener, weirdly, but I'm kind of a gardener who's never really had my own garden. So I've had one that was right by the sea and the waves would land in it. That's the nearest I've had to actually being sufficient as a gardener. So I've been waiting a long time to get an allotment, and I finally have one. And then Gardener's World have jumped on the bandwagon and started filming it with me, which is kind of pressure, but it also means I get to go all over the country and meet lots of lovely people like yourself who are doing amazing, inspiring things with their allotments.
How did Gardener's World find me and the Isle of Man? How did you end up here?
Well, it's a big team effort. So at the beginning of the year, there's a director and a researcher, and we speak a lot about what I'm planning on the allotment, and that gives them ideas. And then Susie will go and she'll find all these different people, amazing people around the country who are doing different things, and that will then feed into the story, and I find myself in all these incredible places.
Yeah, so today we've been making some beauty products with things that we've grown from the garden. What other allotments have you been visiting? What things are you interested in putting into your allotment?
Well, I am a realist. So although I love the thought of being totally self-sufficient in veg, I know that I don't have the time to do it. So I've been kind of growing lots of different things, cut flowers, perennials. I'm very into anything useful, as we were chatting about earlier on. You know, if you can eat it, great. If you can dye with it, if you can make cosmetics with it, as we've been doing today, that's amazing. We've been seeing an incredible wildlife allotment as well, where it's just all about pollinators. So it's just a bit of everything, creating a better planet, really, and also a better kind of life experience for yourself, rather than just slavishly growing vegetables and toiling over it and watering every day. You know, just actually making it work for me in a way that I can sustain.
So this is your first year having an allotment. What is your advice for other people just taking on their first plot?
Pick the site carefully. I had a choice of two, which was really good, and I picked the one that had a shed with tools because I thought that was quite a practical concern. But also just don't feel overwhelmed. I think the fact that mine is being filmed has put the pressure on a lot. So my family have been amazing in stepping in and watering and weeding when I'm not there, because my work takes me all over the place. But I think it's to take it step by step, not feel overwhelmed, do some clearance, maybe cover areas with a membrane or something to keep the weeds down if you have lots of weeds like I have. I've learned that lesson the hard way, where I've dug it all up and then it's all growing straight back again. So just sort of take it step by step and approach it in a way that you're able to continue that momentum. I think it's very easy to just get started and then lose the momentum quite quickly and lose heart, because when things start to fail, it can you take it really personally. I've had moments when I've arrived and thrown things on the floor and cried because something that I've planted has been eaten by rabbits, or it's just died in the drought because I forgot to go down and water it. You know, not to beat yourself up too much, because it takes years to get them looking really good.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
We have John Shimmin and Jill Bennett with us this afternoon, and we're finding out about the company Health Checks at Home. And John, just remind us what this is all about in a nutshell.
I was invited in by Jill and Nigel to join their company. It started off as a UK company, and we're now opening an Isle of Man registered company. The issue is really about, as our population ages, we have more worries about their health and well-being. I had that with my mother, and before she sadly passed away, she had a stroke and she had a fall and broke her pelvis. So it's personal to many of us that as our people are getting older, they worry about conditions of their health. when they're ill, they go and see a doctor. What we try and do is avoid them getting to the stage where they have accidents or health problems. So we use technology to monitor their well-being and their statistics, but then that is sent onto a web page that their families look at, but more importantly our clinicians look at, and they can spot trends and maybe identify early intervention to try and keep people well. All about trying to keep people at home longer and safely.
Now, you say we use technology, but actually you've brought some of this technology in. It's actually more about the person themselves taking control, isn't it? And actually using the technology themselves.
Absolutely. It's something where the technology is just a means of collecting the information for the clinicians to look at. We don't believe that technology solves the problems. We don't want to do away with the personal contact. But Jill and her people will look at the data and they'll be able to indicate the trends. But it is done in somebody's own home. It is done by the person themselves or a loved one. It could be a family member or a care worker goes in, takes the blood pressure. That's a good indication of a risk of falls or strokes. It takes their blood oximeter, so that's for people with breathing and respiratory problems, and the thermometer gives temperature. So all of that data is used by the clinicians to maybe identify if we can head off problems.
And Jill, it's your team that looks at all this information. So if somebody's using this equipment that John's just mentioned, how often do they need to be monitoring these sort of things?
Well, it will depend on the person's age and the conditions. We talked earlier on about starting maybe with blood pressure and people with worries about their blood pressure, and with COPD, which is a respiratory problem. And it depends on how well they are. It may only be once a week that we need to do that, or it may be daily, but everything will be individualised with that person, because technology is only useful if it's used by the person and they know how to use it.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
We have just been live on Facebook with Georgie. You can go over there and see the video. It's still actually going. Sarah Hedges doing a marvellous job here. And Beth has been quite violent with some lemongrass. You're quite proud of yourself, aren't you?
I'm super proud of myself, because this is a massive chopper. If you go to, honestly, I'm not even joking. I'm showing everybody on Facebook now the size of this. I mean, is it a chopper or a cleaver? What would you call that?
Well, you can call it whatever you like. It's a dangerous weapon that should be kept in a drawer. It's got a very sharp edge to it one side, but it's got this lovely serrated edge on the other, which is really good for bruising lemongrass.
That's what I did, isn't it?
Yeah,
I did.
And you weren't allowed to use the sharp edge, were you, Beth? Always better not to give Beth anything sharp to use, I think. But so tell us what's going on in this pan now for those on the radio.
On this beautiful Essie, which I have to say I am in love with, these two amazing lids that you pull up for the induction acts as a fabulous splashback, so I just washed those down. So what we're doing here on the induction hob here is we've got some onions, some shallots and some garlic just sauteing. Then I'm going to add chopped, what are they called?
Saturn peaches.
Saturn peaches.
Just to stick with our moon landing theme,
exactly.
We like that.
Just, of course, I knew this was going to happen, didn't I? That it was the 50th anniversary. Not, but hey, we're in sync, girls, aren't we? In sync? In the cook shack? Anyway.
Carry on, Georgie. Nobody noticed.
Anyway, we'll start a dance.
These are the Saturn peaches, and we're going to put them in with the onions and the garlic and just soften them a bit. Then we're going to add chicken. We're going to which is all lovely and cooked, just keeping warm there. And we're going to put some balsamic vinegar in there and some freshly torn basil, and just mix it around, and there you've got your quick meal.
Absolutely, and actually, genuinely, that is really, really simple. So we talk a lot about the fact that people are time pressured these days, but this is something really nutritious that you can knock up fairly quickly.
Absolutely, yeah, and delicious. Absolutely nutritious and delicious. And I'm sure if you didn't have any fresh peaches, I'm sure canned peaches would be absolutely fine.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
Would part of mindfulness be like putting away your phone and kind of switching it off for a bit and kind of having that time? Would that help you focus more in that type of element?
Yeah, that's a very good thing to talk about. Is social media and having your phone. Yeah, I mean, phones are built to distract you. I mean, the technology behind it is to keep you on it, and it works because that's what we do. We can't stop, even though if we're not necessarily interested. And of course, you know, you get to kind of build your own feed, you know, on Instagram or whatever. You're following who you want to, which makes you want to be on it. So it's not like you're just stuck with a load of stuff you're not interested in because you wouldn't look at it. You get to choose it. So you're kind of setting your own bait. Like, I want to look at all this stuff, therefore I look at all this stuff. It's not that great for attention because you're scrolling through lots of information that your brain is having to deal with very quickly. So yeah, as a practice, switching it off, not using it, and also kind of riding the urge to check, meaning you feel like, oh, I've got to check. Just drop, where does that live in your body, that kind of urge, like, I have to. So you just kind of find it in your body and just rest in it. You don't need to act upon it, and then it will fade away and you realize, I didn't need to check. Even though the feeling was there, I didn't need to, and nothing bad happened. So you start to kind of unhook yourself from basically addiction, and that would work with all kinds of addictions.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
I'm intrigued. As a child, Nicole Stott, did you have a moment where you ran into a room and said, I'm going to be an astronaut? And everyone just kind of looked at you with that knowing smile and said, oh, okay, honey.
No, I didn't. It was much later, actually. I grew up with a family that hung out at the local airport. My dad built a couple airplanes, aerobatic airplanes, and I think the inspiration came from there, certainly. And I did watch that first moon landing and was in awe of that for sure. Thought it was, actually one of the coolest things I'd ever seen. But from that point, for a very long time, it never really crossed my mind that it was something that could be real for me. So I didn't think about it that way until much later when I was working at the Kennedy Space Center and had the chance to see what the job was more like. And at some point, I think it wasn't so much my family, but the people there that I presented what about this astronaut thing? Is there any chance? And a couple of people that I consider to be mentors that encouraged me to apply. Because at some point, I think if you love to fly, you're going to think, well, what better place to fly than space if you have the chance?
Absolutely. And did you have anybody there sort of trying to dissuade you because of your gender at all, or were they all very supportive?
No, absolutely not. And one of the things I tell people when I make presentations to schools or other organization is that I think my family was wonderful about this as I was growing up. I never remember being told I couldn't do anything. And certainly when I showed an interest in something, they were, my mom, my dad, my sisters, everybody totally supportive of it, even if it was something that they could never imagine doing themselves. And I think that was true across the board. So very thankful for that. In general, looking at the Earth overall has changed for me. But there's a couple things with respect to weather that I think really stand out for me from the space experience. One being trying to get a really nice, clear picture of the Isle of Man from space, which never happened for me. I think I got a nighttime shot that was kind of clear, but every day that we had a pass of the UK, I would try. And I would send to Howard Parkin, actually, Isle of Man day pass, and it would just be a white picture because I could never get the Isle of Man. And then the other thing is the weather really is the thing that, especially at night when you watch it, just gives this, this perfect picture of the Earth kind of being alive, watching the lightning stream across the planet or the way the clouds are moving and those kinds of things. It really feels like our planet is alive. I feel really blessed to have had that experience. And, the things I'm doing now, and certainly when I was in the office, I love sharing that experience. And I feel like I feel obligated to do that, both for, what's our planet like? How do we appreciate that more, as well as the wonderful things going on in space on the space station?
It's interesting because I was reading a book recently called Moondust about the few people that have actually been to the moon. And one of the things it says is that there's that question, well, you've been to the moon, what do you do now? Where do you go? And you've been in space and lived in space. I mean, what's it like coming home from something like that?
The whole experience is really very, surreal, I guess is a good word to use. And, everything from having been there and believing that I had been there. So very thankful for the pictures and videos. And, to being in space and then landing and as a crew looking around at each other and go, like, holy moly, an hour ago we were in space and now we're back on the planet again. But I think it's all about, for me, it's been every step of the way just treating it all like an adventure. And I'm just on another adventure now that just doesn't happen to be in space.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
Now, we did mention some live music in the studio, which is always incredibly exciting. Delighted that Rachel Hare and Ron Jappy are with us. Lovely to have you both here. Now, Rachel, it's a long time since I've been on a programme with you. You came over, it must have been sort of 3 years ago or so, to talk about the fact you come over regularly to the Isle of Man to teach the harp, don't you?
Yes, I do, and I'm still doing that. So, 26 harp students to teach this weekend as well as playing the festival. It's going to be busy.
So it's in Cognac, which is going on at the moment, and you've been playing already today?
Yeah, we were down, well, we kind of had a wee daddle at Food and Folk. We were kind of mostly listening and, eating the good food and having some coffee.
That's not
it's
too
good
bad,
fun.
is it?
No.
And Ron, welcome to you. Your first time to the Isle of Man?
Yes.
So you arrived here yesterday?
I came here yesterday, yes. Flew over from Edinburgh, straight over, So it's been nice.
And the weather's been all right, actually, so far, so not too bad. So you two formed a partnership when?
Just over 2 years now. We both live in Glasgow, so we're kind of along the road from each other, but can't even work out when we first met each other. No. Just both kind of part of the kind of folk scene in Glasgow. And
And Ron, what do you play? I'm asking that for the listeners, not me, because I can clearly see what it is.
I play guitar and fiddle, but mainly guitar today.
And how would you describe your music then? I mean, you mentioned folk, is that the main?
I guess, kind of trad, kind of upbeat trad material, kind of mainly Scottish based. Yeah. Folk always kind of look at what instruments we play and go, oh, this is going to be a very relaxed gig, and then they kind of go, oh, that's not what we expected.
Oh,
so quite
fantastic.
energetic.
Which is good.
Oh, brilliant. Well, really looking forward to hearing you in just a couple of seconds, but if people want to hear you again, you're playing tonight at the Centenary Centre.
Yep, 7:30.
Yep. Fantastic. What are you going to play for us now?
We're going to play you a wee set of polkas, which is the opening number from our latest album, Sparks.
Fantastic. Take it away when you're ready.
Go. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4.
Those are all our late lunch leftovers for this week. Do tune in for the main helping on Manx Radio, weekdays just after 2 p.m.
Every week, of course, we'll have our regular features with Duxford Diaries. We'll have Mark Tiley's Greatest Hit, Midweek Mindfulness, and plenty more with our monthly guests as well.
But for now, thank you so much for listening to the Late Lunch Leftovers podcast. We'll see you again next time.